In the year 479 after the Hijra, corresponding to 1,886 years since the birth of Christ, a great storm was brewing over Al-Andalus, the Muslim-ruled part of the Iberian Peninsula. This was a time when the Christian kingdoms of the north were growing stronger, and one of their most ambitious rulers, King Alfonso VI of Castile, sought to expand his dominion across the entire land of Al-Andalus. It was in this tense atmosphere that the city of Toledo, one of the greatest strongholds of the Muslims in Spain, fell into the hands of the Christians. Its fall sent shockwaves through the hearts of the Muslim rulers of the Taifa kingdoms, who had grown weak from internal rivalries and disunity. Fearing for their survival, they turned to a distant land for help, to the west of the sea, to the powerful leader of the Almoravid dynasty in Morocco, Yusuf ibn Tashfin. Yusuf ibn Tashfin answered their call. He crossed the sea with an army of thousands of soldiers united under one purpose, to stop the advancing tide of the Crusaders. The two armies met on a plain known as al-Zallaqa, near the city of Badajoz. King Alfonso had boasted in arrogance, "I shall enter Morocco with my sword, just as I entered Toledo." But al-Zallaqa would become his graveyard. The battle began at dawn on a Friday. At first, the Muslim forces led by the Andalusian princes advanced, testing the strength of the enemy. Then, from behind the hills, Yusuf ibn Tashfin emerged with his reserve army, executing a masterfully planned attack. The balance of power shifted. The army of Alfonso collapsed. The king himself was wounded and fled the battlefield, while his soldiers drowned in blood and mud. Because of the muddy ground, the battle became known as Al-Zallaqa, meaning the slippery land. The victory was overwhelming. Yusuf ibn Tashfin sent a message to the Abbasid Caliph in Baghdad, declaring, "I am Abdullah Yusuf ibn Tashfin, the helper of the faith and the destroyer of the infidels." The Battle of Al-Zallaqa was a profound shock to Europe and a clear message to the world. Al-Andalus was not an easy prey. If you enjoy stories like this, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another tale from the greatest moments in Islamic history. The year 479. After the Hijra, the threat of Castile and the fall of Toledo. In the year 479 after the Hijra, which corresponds to the year 1886 in the Christian calendar, the Islamic world in Al-Andalus faced a turning point in its long and rich history. For centuries, Al-Andalus had been a beacon of learning, culture, and military might. However, by this time, the once unified Umayyad Caliphate had fragmented into small, warring kingdoms known as the Taifas. These petty kings ruled independently and often fought among themselves rather than uniting against the growing threat from the Christian north. Among these northern powers, none was more dangerous than the Kingdom of Castile, led by King Alfonso VI, a ruler whose ambition knew no bounds. He saw the weakness of the Muslim rulers and seized the opportunity to expand his territory southward. His dream was nothing less than the complete conquest of Al-Andalus. In this climate of fear and uncertainty, the unthinkable happened. Toledo fell. Toledo had been one of the most important cities of Al-Andalus, both strategically and symbolically. It had stood for generations as a stronghold of Muslim rule, resisting many earlier attempts at conquest. Yet now it had fallen to the Christians without a major battle, due largely to betrayal and the inability of the Taifa kings to cooperate. The fall of Toledo caused panic among the remaining Muslim rulers. They realized too late that their divisions had made them vulnerable. For the first time, some of them considered the possibility that they could not defend their lands alone. They needed help, and they needed it fast. That help would come from across the sea, from the far west of the Maghreb, where a new and powerful force had risen, the Almoravid Empire, led by Yusuf ibn Tashfin. The call for help. The Taifa kings turned to Yusuf ibn Tashfin. As the news of Toledo's fall spread across Al-Andalus, the remaining Taifa kings found themselves in a desperate situation. Their rivalries and lack of unity had already weakened them, but now the threat was existential. If Alfonso Sagars had taken Toledo without much resistance, what would stop him from conquering the rest of the peninsula? It was clear to many that the only way to resist the Christian advance was to seek aid from a strong and unified power outside of Al-Andalus itself. And there was only one such power available, the Almoravid state in North Africa, led by Yusuf ibn Tashfin, a devout and capable ruler who had already brought order to the Berber tribes of the Maghreb. The Almoravid movement had begun as a religious reform and military campaign in the Sahara, led by pious scholars from the Sanhaja Berber tribe. Under the leadership of Yusuf ibn Tashfin, the Almoravids expanded their control across North Africa, eventually capturing Marrakesh and making it their capital. By the time the Taifa kings reached out to Yusuf, he had already built a formidable empire based on strict adherence to Islam, military discipline, and centralized authority, all things that were sorely lacking in the divided and decadent courts of Al-Andalus. Despite their pride and reluctance to submit to an outsider, the Taifa rulers had little choice. One by one, they sent messengers to Yusuf ibn Tashfin, begging him to send troops to defend Al-Andalus from the advancing Christian armies. They emphasized that the threat was not just political or territorial, it was a matter of faith. If the Christians succeeded in conquering more of Al-Andalus, the very presence of Islam in the region would be at risk. Yusuf listened carefully to their pleas. Though he had no illusions about the corruption and weakness of the Taifa kings, he understood the gravity of the situation. He also saw this as an opportunity, not only to protect the Muslim faith, but also to extend the influence of the Almoravid state into a land that had once been the jewel of Islamic civilization. He agreed to help, but he did not do so blindly. He prepared carefully, knowing that crossing the sea to fight in unfamiliar lands would require immense logistical effort and strategic planning. Crossing the sea, the Almoravid army marches toward Al-Andalus. The decision to intervene in Al-Andalus marked a turning point, not only for the fate of the Iberian Peninsula, but also for the Almoravid Empire itself. Yusuf ibn Tashfin knew that sending an army across the Mediterranean was no small undertaking. It required coordination, resources, and above all, a strong and disciplined force. The Almoravid army that gathered for the campaign was composed primarily of Berber warriors from the Sanhaja Confederation, many of whom had already proven themselves in battles across North Africa. These soldiers were known for their endurance, discipline, and deep devotion to Islam. Unlike the mercenaries and loosely organized forces that often served the Taifa kings, the Almoravid soldiers followed a strict code of conduct and were deeply committed to the cause of jihad, not in the modern sense of terrorism, but in the traditional Islamic understanding of defending the faith and fighting oppression. Yusuf appointed experienced commanders to lead different divisions of the army. Among them was his nephew, Abu Bakr ibn Omar, a seasoned general who had played a key role in expanding the Almoravid domain in North Africa. Preparations for the crossing included gathering supplies, organizing transport, and securing ships from ports along the Moroccan coast, particularly from Ceuta and Tangier. The journey across the Strait of Gibraltar was risky, especially if the Christian navy attempted to intercept them. But Yusuf took every precaution, ensuring that the fleet moved quickly and efficiently. When the moment finally came, the Almoravid army set sail toward Al-Andalus, filled with determination and purpose. This was not just another campaign. It was a mission to save the soul of Al-Andalus. The Battle of Al-Zallaqa. The clash begins. On the morning of Friday, the 23rd day of Ramadan in the year 479 after the Hijra, corresponding to October the 23rd in the year 1886 according to the Christian calendar, the decisive confrontation between the forces of Yusuf ibn Tashfin and King Alfonso VI took place on the plains of Al-Zallaqa, near the city of Badajoz. The battlefield was wide and open, perfect for cavalry charges and rapid maneuvers. As the sun rose, the two armies faced each other, each aware that the outcome of this day would shape the future of Al-Andalus. At first, the initial charge was led by the Andalusian princes, who had allied with Yusuf ibn Tashfin. They rode forward bravely, engaging the Christian forces in fierce combat. Their goal was to test the strength of Alfonso's army and draw them into a full-scale battle. Meanwhile, Yusuf ibn Tashfin kept his elite Almoravid troops hidden behind the hills, waiting for the right moment to strike. He knew that timing and surprise would be crucial to victory. After hours of intense fighting, during which the Andalusian forces managed to weaken the morale and structure of the Christian army, Yusuf gave the signal. From behind the hills, the Almoravid reserves burst forth in a thunderous charge. The sight of fresh, well-disciplined troops descending upon them threw the Christian forces into confusion. The Almoravid cavalry, clad in heavy armor and wielding deadly lances, tore through the enemy lines. Archers rained arrows down upon the Christian ranks, causing further chaos. The plan had worked perfectly. The tide of battle turned decisively in favor of the Muslims. The collapse of Alfonso's army. The end of ambition. As the Almoravid forces pressed harder, the once proud army of Alfonso VI began to break apart. What had started as a determined defense turned into a chaotic retreat. Soldiers fell in droves, either slain by the swords of the Almoravids or slipping and drowning in the muddy fields. The battlefield, soaked from recent rains, lived up to its name, Al-Zallaqa, the slippery land. King Alfonso himself was wounded in the battle. Realizing that the day was lost, he abandoned his men and fled the field, leaving behind countless dead and wounded. What remained of his army scattered in all directions, many seeking refuge in nearby fortresses, others simply disappearing into the countryside. The Christian forces had suffered a crushing defeat, a decisive victory. The impact on Al-Andalus and Europe. The victory at Al-Zallaqa was not just a military triumph, it was a turning point in the history of Al-Andalus. News of the battle sent shockwaves across Europe. The idea that a Muslim force could decisively defeat a European king had not been expected. For the Christians, it was a bitter lesson in humility. For the Muslims, it was a sign of hope, proof that Al-Andalus could still resist the encroachment of the Christian kingdoms. The consequences of the battle were far-reaching. It halted the momentum of Alfonso VI's expansionist ambitions and bought time for the Muslim states of the Iberian Peninsula. More importantly, it established Yusuf ibn Tashfin as the dominant power in the region. Over the following years, he extended his control over much of Al-Andalus, bringing the Taifa kingdoms under Almoravid rule. The victory also strengthened the morale of the Muslim population. It reminded them that unity and discipline could overcome even the strongest enemies. A message to the world. Yusuf ibn Tashfin's letter to the Abbasid Caliph. Following the battle, Yusuf ibn Tashfin sent a formal letter to the Abbasid Caliph in Baghdad, announcing the victory and framing it as a triumph not only for Al-Andalus but for the entire Muslim world. The letter read, "I am Abdullah Yusuf ibn Tashfin, the helper of the faith and the destroyer of the infidels. Praise be to Allah, who has granted us victory over the polytheists and humiliated the enemies of Islam. We have defeated them with His permission, and we remain steadfast in our commitment to defend the religion of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him." This letter was more than a mere report. It was a declaration of purpose. Yusuf positioned himself not just as a warrior king, but as a defender of Islam against the rising tide of Crusader aggression. The Abbasid Caliph received the news with great joy. Though the caliphate had long lost real political power, the symbolic importance of such victories remained high. Yusuf's letter helped reinforce the idea that the global Muslim community was still capable of resisting external threats. Legacy of Al-Zallaqa. Lessons for generations. The Battle of Al-Zallaqa left a lasting legacy in both Islamic and European history. From a military perspective, it demonstrated the effectiveness of disciplined and well-led forces, as well as the importance of strategy and timing. The use of a hidden reserve force to deliver the final blow was a brilliant tactical maneuver that would be studied by future generals. Politically, the battle marked the beginning of Almoravid dominance in al-Andalus. It ended the era of the Taifa kingdoms and ushered in a new age of centralized rule under the Almoravids, followed later by the Almohads. Culturally, the battle became a source of inspiration for poets, historians, and scholars throughout the Islamic world. It was seen as a divine victory, a moment when the faithful stood united against oppression. Even today, the story of Al-Zallaqa serves as a reminder of the power of unity, faith, and resilience in the face of overwhelming odds. A story worth remembering. The Battle of Al-Zallaqa was more than just a clash of arms. It was a defining moment in the struggle between civilizations. It showed that even in times of division and weakness, a determined and righteous force could rise to meet the challenge. If you enjoyed this historical account, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another epic story from the pages of Islamic history. Stay tuned for more tales of heroism, strategy, and faith from the golden age of the Muslim world.